Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I am your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane. Hope we have time for Pelicans. We'll take a look at the merger of the USFL and the XFL and how that may, again, impact the New Orleans Breakers. All that coming up on today's program to break it down for us. One of the best we have in the city. He can break film down like nobody else. Covers the Saints primarily for Fox 8, but covers everything. Fox 8 anchor, Fox 8 reporter, Fox 8 blogger, Fox 8 podcast host. He is Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing great. Checking all those boxes here over the last couple of weeks with is the peak season for us over at Fox 8 with all the shows that we're doing, and adding the podcast to the mix and adding, not just a podcast, but trying to do more shows within that podcast. And then obviously it's crazy because I was just at the Saints facility a few minutes before I got here. I got to run back to the Saints facility. I mean, it is just crazy time right now, and it's the NFL. It's always something happening. It's the Saints. There's always something happening, and got some big storylines heading into this week for sure.
We surely do. We'll get into those in a moment. First of all, podcast. Talk about the podcast, subscribers, how folks can subscribe, the blog, all the great programming over at Fox 8.
Well, every night at 10:35 on Fox 8, there's a sports show with the exception of Saturday because we have college football on Saturday. Monday, it's a Black and Gold review. Tuesday is Fox 8 Overtime. Wednesday is Game Plan. Thursday is Final Bet. Friday is Fox 8 Football Friday, our prep show. Sunday, 10 to 11 a.m. is our tailgate show. And then 10:35, we have our Final Play show, with which we have been doing, obviously, for years, since I've been at Fox 8. And then podcast, the Fox 8 Overtime podcast, my producer Vasilios Nicolau and myself. We do that three times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The Fox 8 Overtime YouTube page, you can subscribe there or wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Apple, wherever, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We've gotten a great response from that, so we certainly appreciate that. Subscribers have gone up. Could always use more, so subscribe, rate, review, share, all that good stuff to help the algorithm with our Fox 8 Overtime podcast.
He's got an award-winning blog. I promise you it will be an award-winning podcast. It really is a great podcast, breaking down everything you need to know about your New Orleans Saints and, of course, other sports as we get into it. All right, let's jump into it. Again, Saints losers to Green Bay 18-17 after leading for 3 quarters. Just imploded in the fourth quarter. A lot of that had to do with, again, Derek Carr going down in the third quarter. I want to get to the offensive line, which has been the big talking point for, I guess, everyone this week. But we have to talk about Derek Carr first. He met the media yesterday, And I was surprised, first of all, he met the media, because that's normally something that is reserved for the starting quarterback on Sunday, right? Which we all believe will be Jameis Winston after the injury. But I'll let you take it from here because you were there. Talk about what Derek Carr had to say.
You know me, I observe. I observe a lot.
Right.
And I walked in there. First off, the further and further I get away from that game Sunday, how did the Saints lose that game? How did they lose that game? How did they lose? They were in I was there. They were in complete control. That stadium was totally checked out. They end up losing. That's what happens when your starting quarterback goes down. Nonetheless, I was at practice on Wednesday. I went there for one reason. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to see if Derek Carr was even going to be there, and then if he was there, what was he doing? He was there. He wasn't in pads. It was a full padded practice, which goes to show you where they're at. They were really mad Monday. So it just kind of goes to show you it's kind of keeping up with this physical theme. But nonetheless, so Derek Carr is there. He's got, the hooded sweatshirt and the jersey on, but he's not participating, but he's in very good spirits. He's smiling. He's talking to Ronald Curry. He's talking to DJ Williams. He's going through the motions of what Jameis is doing on each play. He's kind of listening to the play call. Very similar when Drew got hurt when he did that back in, was it 2015. And I think that's that. I figured that was that. He'll probably do this the rest of the week. And, we didn't get our schedule for that day, Wednesday. It was kind of all up in the air for us who was talking, because it's pretty much well known around the NFL. Wednesday afternoon, or whenever your main press conference is on Wednesday, your starting quarterback talks. So I thought, given Dennis Allen's comments on Monday that it's week to week, we're not ruling anything out, and then Wednesday he reiterated week to week, still not ruling anything out, that perhaps they would keep it vague. Well, no. Derek Carr came up to the podium and spoke for a while. I'm sure you listened to the press conference. He was pretty upfront and honest about his situation, despite not wanting to talk about the actual injury, which I understand. But basically said if he can play, he's going to play. And the fact that he stepped up and was and they let him go talk at the podium, I don't know, because generally speaking, if you don't know, you just wouldn't have a guy talk that day. And everybody moves on, and maybe he talks on Thursday or he talks on Friday, and generally that's how you get a read on who's going to start that day. But he spoke. And interestingly enough, he said he didn't feel like if he had to play on Sunday without getting any practice reps, he would feel okay in doing that. So it's really where is he at? What can he show the coaches where he's at? What number is that? 85%, 80%? And is 85% of Derek Carr with a game plan designed for him better than Jameis Winston at close to 100% or whatever, 100% this season? Is that better? And that's for the coaches to decide. So if you'd have asked me Monday, I said, there's no way he's playing this week. There's no way he's playing this week. But now here we sit on this Thursday afternoon, the time of this taping. I say there's at least an outside shot he plays. Now, the offensive line is still an issue, and that's got to come into play. But remember this, Derek Carr is DA's guy. I mean, that is his guy.
That's right.
So if his guy says, I want to give it a go, it may carry some weight on Sunday. I guess we'll find out.
Carried some weight last year with Jameis Winston, who wanted to go after getting beat up against Atlanta. Comes back, I think it was at week 2 against, was it Tampa?
Tampa Bay, yeah.
Okay, Tampa. And, of course, again, had the 3 interception, 1 fumble game, and that was the it. We didn't see Jameis Winston again. We saw him in Carolina.
We saw him in Carolina.
But he was sacked, I think, 4 times.
Yeah, disaster of a game in Carolina.
It wasn't again.
For everyone, not just him.
I think he had 1 interception in that game. We didn't see him again after that. They went to Andy Dalton, which leads me to, look, there are a lot of people in this town that are still Jameis Winston fans. Okay, I mean, you know where I'm going with this. Okay, because I talked about this yesterday on the radio show. Let's say Jameis Winston is the starter. Let's say Jameis Winston plays well for a couple weeks. He lost his job due to whether it was injury or not. He lost his job, and again, he came out publicly last year and talked about it. Right?
Weird, yeah.
Okay, I mean, rarely is a quarterback, and then he came back.
Yes.
And took a pay cut.
Yeah.
Which again, that doesn't happen, right? So, I mean, this hypothetical. Let's say he plays and he plays well for a couple weeks. DA is in a tough spot. Because last year, again, he just said, I'm going with Dalton. He's the best chance for me to win. When, again, most players feel that you can't lose your job due to injury. Hypothetical, but I think DA is going to be in between a rock and a hard place if it goes in this direction.
Yeah, that's a little further down the road. First off, last year, not a single player publicly was like, Jameis needs to be the starter,
Right.
because that wasn't the case. So
Okay.
that was not the case. There was a lot of Andy Dalton backers inside that locker room. But nonetheless, it was a little surprising to hear Jameis say that. Plus, this is not an Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston situation.
not.
This is Derek Carr
Right.
and Jameis Winston.
Right.
Derek Carr, 4 years, $150 million. You're going to give up on him after 10 quarters?
Right,
After
right.
10 quarters, you'll give up the
Gotcha.
whole experiment.
All right.
10 quarters.
I'm with you.
So, no, I don't think that would be a situation. Now, with James, and to me, that actually simplifies things for Jameis, and it actually takes the pressure off Jameis because he's not having to prove anything. I've always felt like Jameis was, in 2021, kind of trying to prove he wasn't the guy in Tampa. Last year, proving he can come back and be healthy, prove he can be the face of the franchise. And I think, I don't know, it just never. He always felt like he was just trying to prove himself. Now, I think this kind of takes the pressure off. Relax, trust the coaches, and go execute the game plan if he gets called upon to go play in a game. But you're right, there are a lot of Jameis Winston fans in this city. I love Jameis Winston. We're around him all the time. I think he's fantastic, but it is not nearly the same situation as Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston as far as Derek Carr and Jameis Winston. Because look, I mean, they give him $150 million, and they've won every game he started, and they were winning when he went out of the game against Green Bay. So I understand there's going to be some that may suggest that if the second there's a good play, if that were to happen, again, very hypothetical, but I just don't see that happening. I don't see that being a problem.
Let's go back to Derek Carr and let's talk about the injury, because everything we've heard about the injury at this point is that he'll be able to play with the injury. It comes down to range of motion, comes down to again, pain tolerance. But also, we know this from last time with Breeze, accuracy and also, again, velocity. So those are the boxes that have to be checked for him to be able to play the next time he gets on the field, whether that be Sunday or next Sunday.
Yeah, and frankly, he kind of alluded to this, and I like that he said it. If he steps on the field, the injury excuse goes out the window. You can't use, I'm not playing well because I'm injured. So, I mean, you can take the time to get healed up, or you step on the field, you're basically saying, I'm still good enough to play and be productive and do what I have to do to win games. But it really boils down to, like you said, to me, pain tolerance in the NFL, all those guys have pain tolerance. It is not a pain tolerance thing, because you can take stuff that could, certainly allow you to function with pain. And it really is about functionality, range of motion, and with that range of motion, can you still get the ball downfield? Can you still be accurate with the football? And by the way, do it behind the line. It's been suspect the first 3 weeks of the season. That's all stuff that has to get weighed into this equation.
Right. And of course, that's one of the other things. If you're New Orleans right now, and you're that coaching staff, and you're thinking, man, this offensive line has been really, again, I mean, we got 12 sacks, 17 quarterback hits in 3 weeks. They have been porous. So, do you chance your $150 million man going out there with, again, a week removed from an injury like that?
That's the other side of the business investment. Is wait a second, this is a week 4 matchup against Tampa Bay. We got to play them again. We can certainly make it up if we lost. I can understand that. You also understand that sometimes these things come down to winning the division, losing or coming second place in the division by 1 game. So every game matters. I remember vividly, despite Teddy Bridgewater going 5-0, when Drew was ready to go, they had the bye week after that, so they could have not just let Teddy start one more game. They also had the bye week. They still let Drew come back, and I remember the first thing Sean Payton said was, all these games are important. All these games are important, so you want to give yourself the best possible opportunity to win. And Drew did that. So, yeah, the coaches will be able to tell if he can and cannot function. And if he's feeling better from Sunday, which looked bad, to Monday, to Tuesday, to Wednesday, chances are he's going to feel a little bit better today or Thursday, and then, of course, Friday. And then I would think by Friday, though, you're probably going to make your call, even if you don't verbalize it externally. You're probably going to make your call. And
I wouldn't verbalize it.
You don't need to. Why would you?
I'd have Tampa Bay having to be able to prepare for both guys.
That's what I would do, and I think they're obviously having to do that right now. But and the guy they really got to prepare for is Derek Carr, because they obviously have quite the history with Jameis.
And they know Jameson, and that's the other kind of caveat to this.
It is.
I mean, again, had struggled against his team last year. The 3 interceptions and the fumbles, the horrible game. A lot of people, again, myself included, kind of put that game on him. Okay.
That was a rough game
that's
for him,
straight up that on him. Again, the turnovers kind of reverted back to the old Jameis. Now getting a second shot, maybe again it is against his old team.
Well, that's why it was a little bit surprising to all of us yesterday. I got to give props to Catherine Terrell because she asked DA the question. Was Taysom into consideration? He was so quick to say no, he was not. It's like, is that really the craziest thing in the world to think that maybe Taysom, given just matchup wise, not talent wise, but matchup wise, this could potentially be a better matchup. I always lean more towards Jameis and let Taysom do his thing, what Taysom does, and I still think he gets a lot of quarterback snaps. And you brought in Jake Luton, but that was not a crazy idea, but looked like DA threw cold water on that right away. But all in all, here we are Thursday. I like I said before, I think when the week started, we kind of had a pretty good idea who's going to play, and what's going to. I'm still a little bit like there's a chance Carr could play, and if your starting quarterback, your $150 million man says, I want to play, I'm ready to go, and he shows functionality in that arm, I think you got to have to.
I think it's the same thing like with Breeze with Peyton as Carr with Allen. I think if Breeze goes to Peyton and says, hey, I want to play, he's going to play him. And I think if Carr does the same thing, he's going to get a chance to get on the field. I do think, though, the offensive line and the lack of protection is a component of this, okay? I don't know how to make heads or tails of it. Okay, I've talked about it all week on the program.
Well,
This is an offensive line that is a veteran offensive line for the most part. You have Penning. Everything cannot be laid on Penning at this point.
It can't because he hasn't been the worst one.
No, he has not. Okay, so across the board, I mean, every one of these guys, Ramczyk has gotten beat. Again, Ruiz, before he went out, he got beat. Hurst got beat. Pete was blocking air last week, okay? McCoy, who again has been one of those steady players on the line, has been getting beat. Some of these guys getting pancaked by linebackers. The inability to be able to diagnose a stunt, a twist, where the blitz is coming from, I mean, it is mind-boggling. So, and look, I talked about it yesterday. There's no cavalry out there.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Lyle Collins is available. Okay? Taylor Lewan, Gabe Jackson, Ben Jones, Eric Fisher, Jason Peters. Jason Peters is 41 years old. Okay? I mean, those are the best names that I pulled from those that are out there right now. You look at also the investment that's been made, and you and I talked about this on a radio show yesterday. They have outs with McCoy, also with Ramczyk and Pete after this year. It's $70 million in dead money, okay? You have not only drafted high with these guys, first and second round picks, you've doubled down by giving them a second contract. Sean, I don't know what they're going to do. You break down film more than anybody else. I don't know what the issue is, but all I know is there's not somebody waiting in the wings to come take these guys' place.
Like there is no. Well, that's the right answer. There is no. The solution is this, and the solution, frankly, is you got to play better, which is so much easier said than done. Clearly, because they would have done it already. I go back to, is this combination correct? You have basically 6 starters. 5 play, obviously. Now, Cesar Ruiz could be out this week. We'll see. He's in concussion protocol. We'll see. So, can you play with this 5 to make it a better? Is it, we were talking about this throughout camp. Is it, pinning Hurst? Is it pinning Pete? Is it Hurst, Pete? That was kind of, discussed, and that was kind of, they tinkered with that throughout camp. They settled in on Pete got hurt, so they settled in on pinning and Hurst. Is it time to rethink that? Possibly. Is it a simple matter of are teams, are you not seeing what you study from a team? Are you not seeing that when the game comes around, and thus you're misidentifying certain things, and you're sliding one way and they're coming this way, and or you're supposed to help here, you're supposed to chip there, and it's not happening. What's happening is it's affected the clock in your quarterback's head. That is because Derek Carr missed more throws last week than I've seen him miss really since he has been here. And that goes back to training camp. He never misses open guys in the middle of the field. He wasn't even looking in the middle of the field. Now, what's the middle of the field throw? Especially second level. That is a longer developing play. You got to have a half a count longer to make that throw. And the ironic thing, the one time he did hold on to it to let a play develop, he got hurt. And that's what happened. He was holding on a little too long, waiting for Michael Thomas to clear on the over route. So I don't know what the solution is, but I do know this. If the solution is let's just get more time on task together, well, you're running out of time because by week 4 you got to know who you are. You got to know who you are. So if that's still your belief, this is the last week of that belief, because it's got to come together this week, or you got to make some significant change.
Let me just throw some scenarios out here. I've done them all this week on the radio show. You guys missed it, go check the podcast out. All right. McCoy makes the line. McCoy used to make the line calls. Carr makes the line calls now. Okay. Let's say Carr doesn't play. Does McCoy go back to making the line calls? Okay. Or is it Jameis? But let's take it a step further. You talked about it. There's some confusion. Is Carr not making the right line calls? I mean, is Carr pointing out the mic? Is he pointing out where the blitz are coming, and it's not coming from that way? And these guys are
I don't know.
I mean, again,
I don't know.
Is it overcompensation?
Yeah, I don't know.
Are guys overcompensating for the guy next to them because
honestly, I worked with a former Saints player,
right?
And he that was more the area he was leaning towards. Like, they're so concerned about the next man, like they've got to just focus on what they're supposed to do,
right?
Because I think Penning has shown marginal steps of
Me
improvement.
too.
You got to let him make his mistakes, because as long as it's not week one mistakes, you can live with what he's doing. But if your whole entire first thing is to make sure the rookie is okay on every play, that ain't gonna work.
Right.
Not in the NFL. The guy across from you is way too good. So that could certainly be a mentality thing. It could certainly be a concern. And which is leading to not doing your specific job. I mean, there are all sorts of things that could certainly happen. And then there's just a straight up, you just got beat. Your technique is bad. You just got beat.
That was the next thing I was going to ask you. Again, it's one of the things I brought up this week. All these guys have been injured. Have these injuries put them in a position now where, again, it's been debilitated so much that they're not the same players they were?
Well, there's the other thing, because if you were a 10 going into the season, but injuries over time, cumulative injuries over time, knock you down to an 8.5.
Right.
It don't take. I tell people this all the time.
Right.
It doesn't take much. If there's 2 or 3 guys that are just not quite up to the level of production they once were, that slight dip, as small as it might be, can be huge in terms of down to down efficiency, down to down offensive execution. And I think it's a combination of all those things, Eric. I really do, because I still think there's some chemistry issues going on.
Okay.
They're not seeing the same thing, which is mind-boggling. Considering there's only one new starter.
Right.
But there's also, there's some guys that play a lot of football on that line.
That's
and
right.
Look, that could happen with Father Time and injury.
No, and look, I'm trying to pull everything to try to figure it out, okay? Because I look at the games like you do. I go back, I go play frame by frame, play by play, and I'm trying to say, I'm seeing who's missing that. It's not, the organization's done the right thing. They've invested in the offensive line.
Exactly.
Ramczyk was a first-round pick at 17. Ruiz was a first-round pick in 20. McCoy was a second-round pick at 19. But again, he was the first overall pick for the Saints. Hurst was a free agent. Pete was first-round pick in 15. And, of course, Penning first-round pick. These are all first-round picks. The other question is, defensive lines have gotten more athletic. When you look at again, the athletes in the NFL now, where are they at? They're on the defensive line in a lot of cases. They're bigger, stronger, faster. Is that an issue for this line right now?
And there are other things as well. Are they getting enough work in the offseason? Are they getting enough work in the preseason? Are they getting enough time together?
Right.
It's a Saints problem, but
it's a league problem.
NFL, it's not just depth offensive line. It's offensive line production and play from your starters, which leads everyone to believe everyone's so concerned with injury in the offseason and the preseason that maybe that's come to the detriment of offensive line play. Plus, there's this, and you kind of alluded to it there. Have defenses caught up? I mean, are we out of the shootout era? Have defenses caught up? I'm starting to see that as well, because just pause for a second.
Yeah.
Has Joe Burrow lit the world on fire? No, he hasn't. I know he's been injured.
Right, he's injured.
Jalen Hurts has struggled a little bit. Early in the season, Josh Allen was struggling after week 1. I mean, there are a lot of Deshaun Watson was struggling. There are a lot of quarterbacks, established quarterbacks that have been struggling. I'm starting to wonder if just league-wide, defenses have caught up, which you knew they would, but now it's on the offenses to swing back.
That's also where you're getting your offensive linemen from. College game has changed now.
That's it.
Okay, so you're in a situation now where you have to draft and groom offensive linemen. You have to draft and groom defensive linemen. You can draft them high, but it's on you to be able to teach those guys and groom those guys and let those guys develop. Look, Marone is one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL.
Well,
Jerry Evans is going to be a Hall of Famer, not just saying NFL Hall of Famer. Those are the guys that are coaching this offensive line. They didn't forget how to coach.
They didn't, but is it getting through?
Right.
All these things are now to the point where it's fair to discuss, and
absolutely,
you have to figure it out at some point. The good news is, because it's been a little gloom and doom, I understand, after a loss. The good news is they are 2-1. They have figured it out in game enough to win the majority of those games. And I still say had Derek Carr stayed healthy, they win that game in Green Bay by at least 2 touchdowns. But you're only it's very hard, in my opinion, to every team has a weakness. And if you're their biggest weakness.
Right.
And if your biggest weakness is offensive line, it's very hard to overcome that in today's day and age.
I'm sorry.
If your deficiency is we're not great at linebacker,
Right.
you can overcome that.
Right.
If your deficiency we're not great at running back, you can
Agreed.
overcome that. If your deficiency is we're not good up front on the offensive line, you're going to get this kind of up and down sort of
right.
production when it comes to offensive play.
I will be so bold to say, okay, that every other position on this team, that the Saints are in good shape.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Across the board. And you can make a case for place kicker and punter. Okay, but those guys are easy to be able to go on the waiver wire and grab another one and put them in there, and hopefully that guy works. Okay, but across the board, I think the only weak link we're seeing right now on this team is the offensive line.
1,000%. I mean, you look across the board at the Saints, this is a really complete team.
It really is.
Except for the offensive line.
And it shouldn't be that way.
And look what it's done. And look what it's done. This is where you're at. You're talking about a team that's almost complete. And the one thing they have wrong, that's the fear of everyone.
Right.
I mean, right now, if your deficiency was at tight end, you can overcome that. You can overcome that.
Hide that deficiency.
You can do that. But that unit, and if it were just one player, I think that would be so much easier
If it was just
for them
Penning,
to fix. If it was just Penning,
Right.
you could fix that. But it's all 5 of
That's
them right
right.
now. And honestly, Ramchacker was really bad last week. One of his worst games as a pro. But to me, it's been the interior. Those interior 3, from Ruiz to McCoy to Hurst, they have really struggled throughout the entirety of the season.
One more thing on this, and then I want to go to the Tampa and look back at Green Bay for a moment. The other part, you mentioned it. You've got a new quarterback. Breeze knew pre-snap read where he was going with the ball. He was pointing out the mic. He knew where the blitz was coming from. He got the ball out quickly. Early in his career, this was more of a vertical team. As he grew older, again, it became more of a dink and dunk team. Carr wants to get the ball downfield. You've got playmakers on the outside that have speed now. Those take time for those routes to develop. Is this a situation where it's taken a beat or two longer? Those guys got to hold those blocks longer. That's an issue. They don't know where. They don't have the cohesion with Carr right now of knowing where he's going to be when he's stepping up, etc. Is that all part of this?
Absolutely,
this
and
right now?
it's a chemistry no one talks about. It's the QB O-line chemistry. We hear about QB receivers, your tight ends chemistry. We never hear about QB offensive line chemistry because this is a precision offense. This is you got to be where you're supposed to be. Boom, 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 throw,
and for the receivers, they have to recognize the defense.
And they got to
break their route
be
off.
where they're supposed to be. And look, you go back and watch that incredible Olave one-handed catch. It was a dime by Derek Carr. He had 2 really good throws in that game. That was a dime. He has to navigate on that play. He's got a rusher at his feet on that play. So even like that, a great play. There's still some messiness there that he's got to overcome, and it's just the cumulative impact right now is just you have a quarterback. A, he's hurt, but B, I'm not sure that cohesion is there enough for them to go out and win games. Now, hopefully that can get better, just knowing where he's going to be and when he's going to be there. Maybe that gets better over time, but the coming together of the offensive line, to me, that has to come together this week, or you have to make some changes.
And look, you got to keep your quarterback upright.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's going to be Winston, if it's going to be Carr.
Yeah.
I mean, who it's going to be at some point. You cannot have your quarterbacks getting injured, and that's where we're all right now. Okay. Defensive breakdown last week in the fourth quarter against Green Bay. I have given Dennis Allen all the accolades for, again, just going out and confusing young quarterbacks. Young was not confused last week. Maybe early they had him a little bit confused first 3 quarters. But when they went to the prevent defense once again, dropping 8 back, rushing 3, Love used his ability to be able to again scramble, looking downfield, and just hit the open spots. This has been like the last couple of weeks going into this kind of prevent type defense in the fourth quarter. It's kind of cost this team. They've been up. They've won the games. It cost them last week against Green Bay. What was it? They were tired. Was it they were down because of the quarterback going down? Was it just Green Bay just taking advantage of, again, a defense that they should be playing?
Well, look, defensively, they were on the field a lot in that second half.
They sure were.
I mean, look, they punted 4 straight times when Derek Carr went down, 4 or 5 straight
Right.
times.
It was 5 straight times.
5 straight punts, 4 with
Right.
when
Carr won.
4 after when Carr went down, and it was pretty quick drives. All they really needed was a couple sustained drives and 1 field goal, and they win that game. So yes, by the time the fourth quarter came, it was the middle of the 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter. I thought the defense was fine, and then I keep saying this. It's the NFL, that it's so, the talent disparity, it's not the same as college, and you just cannot keep giving an opposing offense that many opportunities, because I don't even think Love finished well, but I don't think he played particularly well throughout the game until that pass interference call, back-to-back pass interference calls. They got like 70 yards in penalty yardage, and it set up their first touchdown. If you get something on that drive back, if you're on offense, then you take a little bit of their momentum out and you run some clock, and you weren't able to do that. So they got the ball back. They're able to tie it up again. And Matt LaFleur going for 2 after that first touchdown was interesting to me. That ended up being the right call, but I was so surprised to see him do that. So defensively, yes, I thought they let one get away at the end, and I do think you can look at the dropping 8 situation and be like, that was the wrong call if you're DA. But I'm not putting that game on the defense, because I think for 3.5 quarters, I mean, they were booing Jordan Love in that stadium.
Right. Taylor really played well. Kid can play.
Very much. He played really well. And he got one of those PIs, but they accept that with him, because that was close, and they feel like not every officiating crew is going to make that call. He had a couple PBUs. He had a sack. He had a tackle for loss. But there's another level you can get to in this game.
Right.
He had 2 PBUs that should have been 2 INTs.
Yes, true.
Get the head around. So me and Deuce were talking after the game. Get the head around. And you make a pick right there. You're going the other way with it, as opposed to knocking it down, and you know how it goes. Right. And if he could just, his first INT is coming. It's coming, but I thought he was a scrappy player. And this week against Tampa Bay, they got a couple receivers that are no joke, so they can match up with the Saints secondary.
On the flip side, the guy that's been an island, the guy who's played incredible, he's been playing all pro ball, played very lazy on Sunday, and that was Marshawn Lattimore. Some big plays down the stretch where he didn't make a tackle, where he got blocked out, that he just didn't step up.
There were a couple of plays. I thought he played good early. They were staying away from him early in the game. He got beat on that 2-point conversion, but that was one of those plays where it almost felt like, do y'all care about pass rush? Because it just doesn't seem like y'all care about rushing the passer right now. There was no pass rush by the fourth quarter, which was a little surprising to me. Really, the entire game, but I guess I didn't really notice it until the fourth quarter when they started scoring points. But they took it personal this week. They were very frustrated about the way the Green Bay game turned out, especially on defense.
All right, Kamara's back. Winston's had issues getting the ball to Kamara, in the past, swings, screens over the middle. I mean, I go back in my mind's eye and I see the frustration of Kamara with Winston, who feels very, very comfortable with Michael Thomas.
You can tell,
If Winston plays, how much does that change? But he's a big boost to this team no matter what, him coming back.
I just think from an energy standpoint, a presence standpoint, a guy that could just make plays, and he's a game changer out of the backfield, which is what they need, especially with the offensive line that's struggling. I think, I said this last night, if you're Kamara and you're getting creative with him from a formation standpoint, maybe, a team has a blitz call on, they like to look, and all of a sudden you spread Alvin Kamara out, you splint him out wide, and the linebackers got to go with him. All of a sudden that blitz call goes away, and then you're in a little bit better favorable situation just because of the presence of Alvin Kamara. So he's chomping at the bit to get back. He's fresh. He looked very explosive at practice the other day. So I know this team's ready to get him back, and he's a big part of what they had planned for this offense. And to be able to play small ball and still get big plays, which what Alvin Kamara allows you to do, that's huge to get that back into your offense.
Got to have an offensive line that can protect and open up holes for the running game. All right, final question. Tampa in the Dome on Sunday, division game. Don't know who's going to be the quarterback. You said the team is upset. They're going to be angry. Give me your thoughts.
It's an interesting game because I went back and watched the Eagles game just today, as a matter of fact. They frustrated Jalen Hurts in that game. I'm surprised they blew some opportunities because they really had chances to win that game.
Mayfield's not playing bad.
It wasn't nearly as bad as the final score. So they had a dropped touchdown by Mike Evans. They had a dropped interception that could have changed the game. So they're playing good ball, and their receivers against the Saints secondary, and we know they have history.
Yes.
That's the best matchup. I mean, that's the toughest matchup the secondary is going to have.
Right.
That's had the first 4 games of the season.
Oh yeah.
Baker's a little like Jameis. Like he's got moments where he does really well, just like Jameis. Jameis is capable of throwing 4 touchdowns in a game. He's capable of throwing 3 interceptions in a game. I think Baker's a little bit like that. I'm not quite as explosive with his arm, but he's done fairly well with what he's been given in Tampa Bay. But this is going to be a tough matchup, and the wild card at quarterback cannot be understated. But that's on both sides, Baker and Jameis. So I do like the fact that they're back at home, though.
All right, a little bit long there. Sorry, Will.
It's all right.
Had to get it all in. All right, Sean Fazende, Fox Sports is our guest. I'm Eric Asher. I'm your host. We'll be right back. We'll talk some LSU, Tulane. If we got a chance, we'll talk Pelicans. We'll also mention again the XFL and USFL merger and how that affects the Breakers going forward. All that coming up here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Stay tuned.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Acadian Custom Shutters is locally owned and operated, specializing in interior and exterior shutters and window coverings, as well as awnings and patio covers. Acadian Custom Shutters offers American products with personal service and workmanship, serving the South Shore, North Shore, and Mississippi Gulf Coast. More information is available at 985-893-3119 or AcadianCustomShutters.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Sean Fazende, Fox Sports is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Okay, we had a YouTube question about Pete Carmichael, and I don't want to ignore that. Your thoughts on Carmichael, how he's done so far?
I understand he's the scapegoat right now. He's been getting piled on, much like he did a season ago. When people say he needs to be more creative, less predictable, well, do you have any suggestion? Because a lot of times people like that don't really quite understand what goes into a play call. Now, where I will say he needs to get better, it's got to be first down play calling. First down play calling has been not good. For instance, last week I went back and looked against Green Bay with Derek Carr in the game. They ran the ball the majority on their first downs, with the exception of that last drive before they got to halftime, that 4-minute drive they did. And then when Jameis got in the game, when they were up 17-0, they passed the ball the majority on first down. To me, if you're going to do it, invert that, because when it's 0-0, it's one thing to kind of mix it up early in the game to throw the analytics off of the other team and throw the what they're looking at, throw a lot of things at them early in the game. But when you're up 17-0, to me, that's when you really want to get the ground game going, because that's when you can do that with that comfortable lead. So I felt like first down play calling, it jumped out at me against Green Bay. Now, it jumped out because they lost the game, but when I went back and looked at the numbers, I was surprised at how much they 17 on first down with Carr, passed on first down with Jameis Winston. I think both have got to be mixed up a little bit, but when you got almost a 17-point lead, what was that, the 3-score lead? You got to me, that's when you run the ball more on first down.
XFL, USFL have announced today they are merging. There are 16 teams as of right now in both leagues. There's no word on, again, whether they'll go with 8, 12, or 16 teams. The big question mark is here in New Orleans is, again, will the New Orleans Breakers come home and play here? And look, we've discussed this on this program. We've discussed it on my radio show, and I want to get Sean's opinion now. The issue with New Orleans is not whether, the people will go out and support spring football, because I think they will. The issue is, again, venue, where they're going to play. The neighborhood does not want football at Tulane again, other than Tulane and maybe again a couple high school games. Hoss Memphis can't handle it. Tad Gormley is not TV ready. Pan American can't handle it. Again, the Dome is going to be out of commission for the Super Bowl this year. If you go into it next year and let's say it's open, that's a high rent building right there. When you look at Zephyr Field, that's at least a year, maybe 2 away from the renovation that will turn into a multi-purpose facility that could house a USFL or XFL team, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be called the National Spring Football League, NSFL.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's funny because when I saw the merger, I hadn't really paid too much attention to it, but it made sense because it's the 2 off-season leagues that, are wisely not trying to compete with the NFL, but instead be more of a, I guess you'd call it almost like a developmental type league. The question is, where do they play? Because I know the USFL, it was just a few cities they were playing. They weren't playing in any, the majority
Canton,
of the home
Birmingham,
cities.
they now expanded that to a couple more cities this year.
Well, that's all legitimate questions. It just seems like they announced the merger left a lot of details out.
There are a lot of details out.
So are the teams going to play in their cities, their host cities? And if if you don't have a facility, does that mean you're out the mix, or do you make the cut? I mean, those are all legitimate questions. Like you said, I think they'll get enough to have some sort of support for the breakers in the off season in the springtime. But where do you play? How often do you play? And is there a suitable facility here and is it enough to satisfy? So who's going to own the league? Is it Fox?
It's going to be one of the networks.
Okay, so if the networks own it, you know what they want. They want a network friendly. They have to do it. So. All legitimate questions, and I have no answer to because that's interesting.
The only way this works is if Tulane allows again them to become a tenant, and that means again let's say there's 16 teams. Was it 8 home games maybe again that you'll deal with if you're playing home and away. We'll see how it plays out. LSU, 13th in the AP, 12th in the coaches poll, 34-31 winner over Arkansas, 3-1 now in overall, 2-0 in the conference. KJ Jefferson is the real deal, but again, Jaden Daniels starts off really slow. He comes back in the second half and has a magnificent game. You know, Arkansas and LSU is always going to be a tight game. It was on Saturday. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Thank goodness for LSU's early red zone defense because that could have really cost them. That was that play that was a Major Burns made at the 1 yard line, and it was a miss KJ Jefferson had in the back of the end zone. But respect to Arkansas, they went into Tiger Stadium, not an easy thing to do, and they really gave LSU all they can handle. Jaden Daniels started off slow, and he was able to regroup. He's got a good, uncanny ability to when he gets that one completion and it turns on for him. It's happened quite a bit.
It happened at the end of the game, at the end of the first half.
That was the play to Brian Thomas was the play, and that really got him back. And you could tell, and that was huge going back into the locker room. Because I almost tweeted concerning first half for LSU, and then I was like, let me see how this last 50 seconds go. Sure enough, they scored a touchdown, so it flipped the whole thing around. But credit Arkansas, they didn't go away. Had they finished a few drives early, they'd have won that game. But good win for LSU. It's a battle in the SEC, and they're better than Arkansas. Look how hard that was.
I know.
So
well, Jefferson's the difference maker.
He is the difference maker, and he's got really good patience.
Yes.
There's a patience with him that lets a play develop, and he is smooth in the face of a pass rush and allows him to find open receivers. And receivers were very open because when you have a patient quarterback, he's going to let that route develop a half a count, and that is killing LSU's secondary right now, which concerns me against Ole Miss.
I would agree. They need to put more pressure. But he's a different breed. He is the new version of what you're looking for in the NFL for a quarterback. He's big, he's strong, he has the ability to throw the ball, make all the throws, and he's hard to get down.
He's a physical runner. He's
really
a different runner than Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is a sprinter runner.
Yes,
he is a physical, rugged football runner.
I mean, he's the guy that can take a little pounding and get the ball out, and I thought we saw that. If there is a concern right now, it is I don't want to say inability to rush the passer, but inconsistency in rushing the passer.
That's a great point. I mean, to me, and they've kind of got a pass the last couple of weeks because it's been an issue. I don't think Mason Smith is back to where they thought he would be. I know Jordan Jefferson's a guy that's probably getting a little more in the mix. I like Mekhi Wingo.
Right.
Savion Jones, I think I said it before. I think when I heard he was 285, I'm like 285 on the end. That's too big. Maybe he's able to shed a little bit back and come back down, and maybe that helps his effectiveness. But if you got a suspect secondary, the last thing you want is an ineffective pass rush, and they need an effective pass rush. And generally, the guy that's been able to neutralize everything and offset some inefficiencies has been Harold Perkins. I didn't feel like he rushed the passer as much last week. So hopefully that changes this week against Ole Miss.
And look, they're even going deep in their rotations on the defensive line, which I don't think is bad. Womack came in and has made some plays. Jefferson made some plays. Again, they got to find this right combination here. But, when they go with whether it's the first team or the second team is coming in a platoon, they've got to be able to put pressure on the pass. And what I don't understand at this point is Wingo, Smith, Perkins. I talked about it last week again that I'm trying to play Perkins like Dallas plays Parsons, right? I want him all over the field.
To me, that's the comp.
I mean, that's what you got to do, right? And who are you double teaming there? Somebody should be free going to and putting pressure on that passer.
Yeah, absolutely. And line them up over the A gap, line them up over the guard. Split them out wide. Have him kind of. Show like he's, kind of covering a tight end, and all of a sudden drop him down at the last second. I mean, all sorts of things you can do. It seemed like they were doing a season ago, but it's been a little slow to pick up this year.
Offensive line's been pretty good. They had their moments though, and some guys that you don't think. Now Frazier played much better last week. A lot of talk about moving Hurd in there and kicking E out to tackle. We'll see how that plays out. But I think they found their backs. Diggs, it looks like the guy. The one thing that if I've got a criticism, Jackson's not getting enough carries. He had 2 carries for 12 yards last week.
Yeah, he did, and the game was never out of reach where you couldn't use him. I like Diggs. I think he's the best overall back on the team. I like the young freshman as well. He's got a physical style that I think suits the kind of the closer role, if you will, for the offense. So that's good that has sorted itself out, because they were like 7 deep, and you saw in game 1 against Florida State how that looked like a mess.
And I thought the best players didn't play either.
Yeah, exactly. So now that Diggs is clearly moved up to RB1. Let's be honest.
Right.
So that's a good thing that sorted itself out, and I think that's sort of stabilized some things for Jaden Daniels as well, because you got to know who you have back there and who you can count on, and who you can trust, and what that player can do in a given situation. And Diggs is somewhat of a veteran, so yeah, I like the way the running back room's come together.
Right. Ole Miss this weekend in the Grove, 5 p.m. kickoff. Give me your thoughts.
Well, we had a little chat. We were out at Saints camp a couple months ago and just kind of looking at LSU, because there was a lot of talk at that time. Second year Kim Mulkey, second year Jay Johnson, second year Brian Kelly. I guess he's got to win a national title too, which is okay. But we were just talking about who could potentially beat LSU, because on the surface they look like it'd be a great team. And I said Florida State, Alabama, and the only team I worry about is Ole Miss, because A, Ole Miss always plays LSU tough, it seems like, and B, they got a great play caller in Lane Kiffin. They're going to play them on the road, and their biggest weakness is their secondary, and you got one of the best play callers in the game. You got an experienced quarterback who played well in the first half of that game last year. Second half, I think Perkins got into his head a little bit. But I think overall this is going to be a very tough game. I'm picking LSU to win. What is the line right now? Is it like 2 or 3? I'm not sure exactly what it is. But this is not going to be an easy contest for LSU. And the one thing that worries me, that slow start against this team, if they combat that with if they start slow and Ole Miss starts fast offensively, and instead of it being like 13-3 like it was last week, something like that, and it's like 20-3, that could be a problem, because no matter how quickly you turn it on, when Jaden Daniels flips that switch that he has, that could be too big of a hole.
Look, Dart is a mobile quarterback. He's different than K.J. Jefferson, but again, he's got a good arm. He's accurate. Judkins is a really good running back. So they got their hands full there. And they got some pretty good receivers. Look, Tulane really gave them all they could handle. They got Michael Pratt. I think they beat Ole Miss. I think LSU's better than Ole Miss. But you got to go out there and prove it in Oxford.
And Ole Miss is always one of those teams where they're capable of losing to teams they shouldn't lose to, but capable of beating teams they shouldn't beat. And if you would stack this up fairly and honestly, I think these teams match up fairly well against each other.
And they're coming off a physical game against Alabama.
They are.
Well.
So,
and that's part of it. All right, Tulane, big winner over Nichols last week, as expected, 37-6. They're 3-1 now. They start conference play this week against UAB. Not going to go back and look at Nichols. No disrespect to the folks that are fans of Nichols. It just is what it is. It's about really, again, UAB this week, 11 o'clock kickoff at Yeoman. Man, I tell you what, I was holding my breath for Michael Pratt last week, okay? Bulky knee brace, got out there, he ran 9 times for 33. He started off a little bit accurate, is 18 for 23, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception before Horton came in and took over when it was out of reach. This offensive line has to protect him. He's going to have to be a little more conscious that he's got to be upright and available for this team to reach all their goals.
You know, week 1, he takes the most unnecessary hit. Like, unlike the second most unnecessary hit I've seen this college football season. The first most unnecessary hit was the one Jaden Daniels took against Mississippi State when he jumped into the guy and got decleated, and the guy got tossed for targeting, which I don't agree with targeting. But nonetheless, you can't take that unnecessary hit if you're Jaden Daniels. You can't take that unnecessary hit if you're Michael Pratt for Tulane. I mean, you're the face of this, call it the franchise, if you will.
If he's not there, they don't win.
And you need to be on the field because you've got next level talent. He can play in the NFL. He can play. I don't know if he's going to be a starter in the NFL, but he has got NFL talent. He has got to be upright, help himself, help his team. That was one of the more foolish hits I'd seen him take. They were up in the game. It was in the red zone. He kind of ran right into it. He can't. I like the way he runs the ball.
Me too.
But he's just got to be a little more cognizant of taking foolish hits.
Especially now.
If it's 3rd and 1 and you got to get the yard and you're down by 1, you need to get to continue drive. By all means, get physical. But when it's that situation where he took it, there's no need for that.
I would agree. Hughes to me looks like the back. Okay, he looks like their best back. Okay, they've given the ball to Clayton Johnson. I like Arnold Barnes, the kid out of Booker T. I think he's another really good back. But to me, they got to start giving Hughes the ball more. Okay, I mean. He looks like the best back on the team. He's always falling forward. He's physical. Look, they have the wide receivers. They got the tight end. Hopefully, again, as we get into conference play now, this offensive line will be dominant because they should be. I'm going to tell you right now, all 3 levels of the defense, they got an SEC defensive line. They got their linebackers, again, and I know it's hard to talk about the 2 linebackers they had last year and how good they were. They're just as good this year, even without Platt going out. And that's secondary. Corners, they're good. The safeties were suspect. They're not suspect anymore. These guys are playing good ball.
Yeah, and I think it all starts up front. I think Willie Fritz has even said this is the deepest and most talented defensive line he's ever had. And when you look at the history of Tulane, when the season wears on and wears on and wears on, when the depth catches up to you, it really hits you along the line of scrimmage. And they've always struggled with quality depth along the defensive line. This year, they have it. It's been fantastic, and it's helped the 2nd level and obviously the 3rd level of that defense. So I think overall, we were worried about last year, eluding some guys coming back, kind of not sneaking up on anybody. I think in some ways they're even better than they were a season ago, and they seem to have the right mentality of a team that came off of one of the most historic seasons in school history to basically a team that can win games this year.
I've said it. I think the country's sleeping on Tulane. I think again when they lost to Ole Miss, a lot of the writers wrote them off, and I am of the belief that they're the best team in the American Athletic Conference. If Pratt can stay healthy,
that's it.
Okay, they're going to win this conference, and they got a real chance of being again in a New Year's Six bowl game again. Look, this is a tough one this week. UAB's always tough against Tulane. Obviously, you got Texas San Antonio at the end of the season. SMU. We can talk about all that. But I think Tulane is loaded for bear and ready to take to defend their title.
Yeah, I mean, look at their schedule. Who beats them? I know Memphis.
Texas San Antonio's not as good as we thought they were.
Memphis is a team maybe you think about. Right. I mean, Memphis is a team. This week UAB, but it's a new head coach and Trent Dilfer, so we'll see. It's a little bit of a new regime. I guess they can always, get caught looking past. But like we just said, they seem to have the right mentality to not look past anyone. I mean. Even when they lost their starting quarterback, they're 2-stepped in and did fantastic. So I think overall, yes, this should be. I would be disappointed if they're not back atop the AAC going forward and into the bowl season.
I'm with you. I mean, again, it starts this week. You gotta stack the wins in conference.
That's it. You have to.
And
Pratt has to stay healthy. If he does that, I think they can run the table.
And it's no knock against Horton. He's just
Horton's
next
the guy
level.
Next year.
Right.
But Pratt is the guy right now that gives you the best chance to win.
Pelicans, again, believe it or not, Media Day is Monday. They start camp on Tuesday. 10 days after that is their first preseason game, and then again toward the end of October is the beginning of the season. Everything we're hearing, David Griffin was at the quarterback club last week. He talked about Zion Williamson being in the facility, working out. He's in the best shape of his career so far. Brandon Ingram coming off a disappointing, World Games with Team USA, but again, he's supposed to be healthy. Only person that's not healthy on this team right now going into this season, obviously at this point, is Trey Murphy with the knee injury. Give me your thoughts. We got about 2.5 minutes on the Pels going into this season.
Well, first off, it's already here, huh? My goodness.
Is that unreal?
My goodness, I'm barely in the
he's
trenches
so deep
of football
in football
season.
right now. He's in basketball.
When you
What's
text
that?
me about Pelicans, I'm like, Eric, what's going on? Did they make a trade? What's going on? What's going on? I'm like, he goes, no, media days next week. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it's already here. Look, Zion's in shape, great. I am not.
I know you're not buying what they're selling.
This media core that covers this team, like every time they see Zion doing anything fantastic in the offseason, it's going to be different this year. Look, that's fine. That's great. I hope it is. When the games start,
show me.
Is he there?
Right.
Is he there consistently? Can he do the things he needs to do to stay on the court?
Agreed.
Be a professional, because they need him to win. Because right now, it's got to be now or never for Zion. Is that right?
I think it's now or never for this
the whole
regime.
thing. The whole thing.
Everything.
Absolutely.
I think Griffin again. Head coach, Zion, Brandon Ingram, and also again, I think the future of the franchise in the city. And I'm not saying they're leaving, because they're not. But I am saying this: when the commissioner comes out and says, your arena is substandard, you have to take that seriously.
Yes.
Okay. And again, for them to get any traction with the state of Louisiana, the legislature, the new governor who's coming in, right, who will be in their first term. Most new governors in their first term are not putting out big money for a building in New Orleans, right? And I don't see the Mrs. Benson paying for this building on her own either.
Right.
It's not their MO.
Right.
I think this is a critical season. You've got to be healthy. You've got to get in the playoffs. You've got to show something. You got to get not just the city energized. You got to get the state energized.
And the way it ended last year was just so disappointing.
The last couple of years.
Disappointing.
Right.
It really was just so disappointing.
Right.
And you get to this spot. It's like this city. I mean, every year it's like, can it work in New Orleans? It feels like you're in a constant state of maybe when it comes to basketball in the city of New Orleans. You have a chance. You have an opportunity. You have a superstar player. He has to do the things to stay healthy. Hopefully he does that.
Right.
It's not going to matter until the game starts. I'm not. That's why
it's true.
I'm not bringing a whole lot of excitement. I'm bringing let's just prove it on the court. Let's just see what they do in the court.
They do need a shooter. Again, losing Trey Murphy hurts them. There's been no movement on the Buddy Hield front. Pelicans are over the luxury tax threshold by $3 million. Mrs. Benson says she'd be willing to go over the luxury tax threshold if they look like they got a championship pedigree. Well, again, do you make that move? Again, yesterday Drew Holiday was traded to Portland in the Dame Lillard deal. He is on the block. There's been no mention of New Orleans involved in any discussions for that. So we'll see what they're going to do. If they're going to stand pat with what they have and run it back. But this is a critical season for this franchise, for this regime, and maybe for the future of the franchise long term.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, if you're Griffin, how many chances do you have?
Yeah, this is it.
I mean, how many chances do you have to really, and he's a guy, he tries. He's been trying drafts and acquisition and talent acquisition and drafts and trades, whatever the case may be. So we'll see if they make that move, because you would probably know pretty soon, right?
Yep.
I mean, you would know pretty soon where this team's going, because if they start off, they stumble out of the gate, there could be some issues out there.
And let me make a quick point here. I do not believe that this team will relocate to another city, because I think expansion is next. I think Las Vegas and Seattle are going to get expansion teams. There's too much money that are going to be coming to the owners from expansion for them not to go into expansion into 2 more cities, and Seattle and Las Vegas will be there. But after that, if there's a new arena out there, New Orleans is going to be on the clock to be able to take care of that.
Hopefully we don't get to that point.
Hopefully we don't get to that point, no doubt. All right, Sean, thank you for being with us.
No problem.
Always good to have you on the program. Sean Fazende, Fox 8 Sports. All right, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning into our program. Remember, again, there's a QR code on your screen right now. We'll take you to my website, the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. Again, click put your phone on there, and again, that'll keep in touch with our program. I'm on the radio 4 to 6 weekdays on 106.1 FM, iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app, our digital platforms. Also, again, Anchor, Spotify is where you can find the podcast. I want to thank the underwriters who make this show possible. Each and every one of those underwriters, we appreciate each and every one of them. If you love this show, please support those underwriters. Also, I want to thank the WLAT production staff that do a great job in producing our program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, also Danielle Wick, Alex Chacon, and the best director on the planet, that would be William Hill. I'm Eric Asher for Sean Fazende. Thanks so much for watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll see you next week for another edition.